Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today I wanted to talk to you about the pornography problem in the writing community, the reading community, and there are a lot of porn addicts who at this point read delusional to me, but I would like to know your thoughts on it. Before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. Number one way to be featured is through Lamwai, which is the monthly prompt writing contest where I offer you a prompt, you respond to the prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we read some of those prompts together, basking in this community's creativity. The second way to be featured is through the Fresh Meat feature. I'm forgetting the name of my own things, which is if you're an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out, if you submit your first chapter and the cover, they will be read here on the channel at random intervals, and hopefully that'll help more readers find your work. The third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available down in the description below, and anywhere that you get books, you can find them, including the library upon request and OneDrive. With that said, let's get into the topic. It's going to be a doozy of a one, but you know what? It's appropriate considering we're covering the ALA books here, and I think that there is actually a problem here. So let me preface in general with this isn't a statement against sex being in books. I want to straight up say that there is a difference between sex in books and smut. And that also kind of gets run over in this conversation where people assume sex and smut are the same thing. Smut is a sex scene, but a sex scene is not always smut. The difference is titillation. The point of a sex scene is to be descriptive and titillating and to generate a frothing river of desire or to feed that feeling. You know what I mean. But a sex scene in a book can be smut, or it can be a fade to black, or it can be an emotional description or a metaphorical description about peaks and valleys, that whatever, and it's not explicit. Now, what is the term explicit? Because I've had that come up before in talking about this, and I'm like, what is explicit? Fully and clearly expressed or demonstrated, leaving nothing merely implied. So an implied sex scene or implied sexual interactions is not explicit sex. However, heavy descriptions of things going inside of other things, of sucking on things, is explicit sex, and that is smut. So how did this subject really come up this time? For a while, I have ignored it when it shows up on social media generally, where it's somebody complaining that somebody else said they like clean stories, where they like to get through a movie or a book without an explicit sex scene in it. And constantly that person, even without passing any judgment on anyone else, just saying that that is their preference, they either get made up for being a child, for being super sensitive to sex scenes, you're just a baby, or because you think that you're holier than other people because you prefer not sex in your, compulsively in your books. Now, I think that there is actually a problem with sexual addiction, specifically in the book community. They have fed their own addiction and they are making money off their own addiction, and it is no different than somebody that watches porn constantly online. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with reading a book that has sex in it, but if you're reading 40 books a month that are all about how gross your book can get, if you're constantly looking for something more and more degenerate because you want that feeling of whatever it was, you need more, you're possibly an addict, okay? You're mass consuming something, looking for more and more. And what happens if you look at somebody talking about sex addiction, or really even drug addiction, is it's somebody looking for the high they got the first time. So they go to harder and harder drugs. They go to harder and harder pornography. They go to more and more extreme stuff. This is a studied and followable thing, where you can see somebody getting into harder and harder core porn, more and more taboo porn. And what is happening? If you look on TikTok, if you look on YouTube at the book community of the romance readers, of the erotica readers, they are constantly, not all romance readers, it's specifically the erotica readers, they're constantly looking for the most taboo thing that they can find and the next big thing. If you look at what is going on in the trends, it's people trying to outdo themselves. There is so much taboo and kink specifically in erotica, and go ahead and express yourself. But don't tell me that there is not addiction when you're constantly only looking for the next biggest thing. It reminds me of Genderqueer, which I read recently. I'll have a review up on that soon because it's one of the ALA books. And the author in there talks about how her first orgasm was satisfying. And then every time she had an orgasm after that, it was never as good as the first one. So she masturbated more, she went into more things, trying to find ways to have the same sort of orgasm as she had the first time, until she kind of just got bored and then was counting on and off when she would masturbate and when she wouldn't, to find those breaks in her masturbation. This is obsessive for your sex drive. To be like, how do I get that high? How do I find the next thing? How many times am I masturbating a day? Is this normal? Probably not. If you're counting how often you masturbate, it's probably not normal. I'm just gonna say. But how did this all start this time? Let's jump into this. It started with seeing this tweet saying, just for this, I'm going to make my steamy romance extra spicy. Changing minds means people are wrong for reading smut, and I can assure you that's utter balderdash. So what was the initial tweet? It said, protect clean fiction as an author. What is this? This is a movement to promote clean fiction, and as an author, I promise you my books will never have smut, foreplay, or excessive lust. In no way is hashtag protect clean fiction trying to ban, legislate morality, or tell readers what to do. It is simply and purely a movement to change people's hearts and minds through education and community. It is a movement to make clean fiction popular and show it that it has a place in every genre. I'm very excited to be part of this. You can access the Protect Clean Fiction website at protectcleanfiction.com. So clearly, it's just somebody wanting clean fiction, which is fair because smut gets snuck into a lot of things. So here she's pissed off at changing minds means people are wrong for reading smut. You've determined that it is a judgment call against you, but you can't tell me from the conversations that I've seen that a lot of people don't think that it's okay to just not have sex in a book. Let's go, not even just smut. Let's talk about sex, period. But I mean, this is specifically talking about smut, and smut is pornography. Like it or not, smut is pornography. And you can have it in your book, but recognize that it is pornography and it doesn't have a place in every book. This feels even more necessary to talk about because of the number of adult women specifically. There are adult men doing it too, but adult women specifically writing what they are calling YA and filling it with pornography. That is for teenagers, or it's supposed to be for teenagers, but you've taken over a genre that was for teenagers and made it into a barely legal pornography fest. You do not see the boundaries. So what am I talking about where you're saying that it's utterly wrong to have smut in writing? I mean, pornography, getting into the morality of pornography is a completely different thing, which we're not going to talk about. But why are there so many conversations about why Brandon Sanderson doesn't include sex in his books? Is it okay or is it not okay to have sex in book or to not have sex in books? Because every time this conversation comes up, it's shaming people for not putting sex in books. You can get away with not having sex in books, but constantly it's, I'm not some pervert and I don't read erotica. I just think that it makes a book more real. A book does not need to have sex in it if that is not the focus of the story. Does every book need to have moments of shitting the bed, of going to the bathroom, of eating every single meal? No, it doesn't. Because those books don't have to follow the literal interpretations of everything. Is it necessary that when you write an anal scene, that you write the dipstick? No, it's not. Because people parse what they want to tell in their story. And by removing the sex and just focusing on an adventure in a fantasy book, then you allow that book to have a greater audience. I don't understand this obsession where everything has to have sex and fuck you. You're a problem if you don't include it. Something is weird with you. It's an obvious hang up if you don't want to have sex in your book. It's even more bizarre when you look at somebody that says, hey, I'm asexual, but I'm going to bug people about putting more sex in their books. Let me tell you what this is. If somebody says, hey, I don't really like this thing, and I'm going to create a community in which we can all get together and have a group of people that understand what we're here for clean fiction, where we're not going to be surprised with sex, where we can give recommendations of non-sexual books. If you have a problem with that and your response is, I'm going to put more sex in that book, are you not trying to expose more people to your book, especially if you mislabel your book? I have seen erotica authors go into genres, subgenres that their book does not belong in order to rank on the bestseller list, in order to have their book seen against all of the other books. I have been sold a Western dystopia that was a thirst trap erotica because the author lied to me. So what is that? Is that fraud? Is that sexual harassment? Because you didn't get my consent. I did not sign up for an erotica when you sold me a Western dystopian. If somebody says, hey, I don't like that, and your response is, well, I'm gonna do it more, fuck you, you're an asshole. So this is the common response in general. You scroll down and it's, I cannot believe that you would tell me. Protected from what? No one is threatening clean fiction. No one is trying to stop you from reading or writing it. I mean, this entire thread and everybody that's responded to this sort of thing has actually made it about going after somebody that said they just want clean fiction. And just because you didn't say, oh, we want to educate you on the joys of erotica, the fact that you're like, well, we're going to write more erotica is the exact same thing as saying, I want to reprogram you to respond to erotica. Because what does porn do to the brain? And that is why you also respond to this with, I want to put more porn in what I'm doing, because you want to expose more people in the same way that you are now damning this person for saying, hey, I would like clean fiction. And then you got adults in here also mocking the creator of this movement. I peeked at the site. This is a kid who is likely echoing purity culture. Adults around her are saying, I'm not sure everybody piling on this post realizes it was made by a literal teenager in high school. I'll just leave it here. Honestly, the only problem I have with this is their attitude that people who write and read smut need correction. Not wanting to read smut personally is completely fine. Casting aspersions on those that do is not. I'm casting aspersions on those that force pornography on other people, that start shaming other people for not wanting it in their content. Here, I write closed door, but this makes me want to just make them spicy. Sexual harassment. And I just added some questionable smut to my historical fiction I'm working on. Clean fiction, as they want to call it, has always had a place, so this is more about their hang-ups for anything else, making protect clean fiction just another joke. So somebody can't say, hey, I'm interested in this specific thing without it being a joke or being about hangups. I don't like explicit sex showing up in everything that I read. And in fact, maybe somebody wants to put on an audiobook. I've heard this too, but they won't put on an audiobook by a woman because women surprise sex on people. Oh, in this historical fiction, if I'm sold a historical fiction, I'm not expecting explicit pornography somewhere in the middle of it. And this is a long-running issue. My mother complained about this, honestly. As always, the suggestive language, clean and protect, as if people run around in shops sprinkling unclean sex words into random books. They literally do! This thread is talking about people spreading more sex into books. Sure, let's have sex-free books, but also, sorry that you were made to feel sex is evil. It should not be. Just because you do not want to have sex, and explicit sex, not even just sex, this is smut, in every single book, does not mean that you think sex is evil. And this is a disgusting framing that every single one of these people do is they say, oh, you're fine to do whatever you want. But also, if you think that a book shouldn't have sex, if you enjoy a book without sex, you think that it's evil. You've got a problem. Or you just have a preference. This is why I'm so pissed off at this shit. Oh my gosh, you guys are sex addicts. And you look like little goblins when somebody says, hey, just how about putting the sex down for sex? No. Do you know what it looks like when someone says, hey, put the object of your addiction down for a sec, maybe? This is what it looks like. Quote, I hate the clean and dirty descriptors, enough that I doubt I'll ever read in something labeled clean. Hate it as much as you want, but the fact that you respond to clean fiction as taking it a personal assault says something about you more than anybody else. And that's the other one that I want to talk about here. I'm so tired of these clean, dirty descriptors. You don't want to read smut, foreplay, and excessive lust. That's perfectly fine, but it doesn't make your books clean or my books dirty, nor should you feel some sort of moral superiority over those who enjoy reading that. These people are reading moral superiority into it, and they read moral superiority into clean and dirty. Look, clean is a descriptor because guess what? Sex is dirty. There's sweat, there's bodily fluids. Sometimes there's urine, sometimes there's poop. It is dirty. Let me ask you, would you sleep willingly in a bed that has had other people having sex in it before the sheets are changed? It is a dirty act. It is a physically laborious act. It is a physical act that involves biological materials being shed. Would you sit on a toilet seat that had urine on it, or do you wipe that first? Because I'm pretty sure there were little paper things in all of the bathrooms so you don't have to sit where somebody else's ass was, and to protect it from whatever germs are all over your crack. So like, when you say that sex is not dirty, in your defense of writing smut, you look like you're coping hard. Sex is dirty. Now, if you want to assign dirty into evil and clean into good, that's on you. That's your own hang-up. But don't make it somebody else's hang-up. That clean means just not having sex in the book, not being excessive in lust. And you know exactly what excessive in lust is. Some of the people in these comments are going, oh, but she left so much room in her thing in order to... She left so much room in her descriptions because what is excessive lust? What counts as foreplay? What counts as smut? Actually, she did list it on her website down here where it says no smut, pretty self-explanatory. No sex scenes with clothes off are porn. Do yourself a favor and do not consume something that will affect how you view sexuality. No foreplay. This doesn't mean you cannot read a kiss scene, but if the clothes start coming off, it's a no. Even if there is no sex, leave the clothes on. Excessive lust. This primarily is defined by a character detailing how they are going to undress another character. Reading lust promotes lust and is quick reminder people are valuable and not objects to be lusted after and boiled down to their body parts. This doesn't mean that you cannot read a book with some lust. Not that it's recommended, but protect clean fiction does not prohibit it. But excessive lust, where the character cannot stop thinking inappropriate thoughts about someone else. Do yourself a favor and put it down. That would be Guns and Smoke and its predecessor, which are terrible. Anyway, so what is all this in response to? This is all in response to an actual teenager who started Protect Clean Fiction to inspire and change the bookish culture around smut and sexuality in books by providing a loving, thriving community for clean book lovers and educating others on the damage of smut. This also, if you go to her blog, there's only one thing there right now, and it is smut in YA novels bad? And so this is a teenager saying, hey, stop thrusting your porn on me. And a bunch of adults saying, no, you're going to accept it, fuck you. Look, you don't have to imbibe on the clean fiction. Do as much smut as you want, but you all are dogpiling on a teenager that says, hey, I would like less sex in my books, and I'm just going to go over here and create a little club for people that want to prefer these things, and you're deciding that her preference for clean books is an affront against you. That's your hang-up, not hers. But this goes a little further. So we're looking at the crash behavior of these people. And their response, you can't take my smut away. You're a bad person for even recommending it. We got these people who will harass Brandon Sanderson and say something is wrong with him if there's no sex or smut in his books, when you can literally just write a book without sex. And then you've got the escalating addiction in these people. Romance novel fans, which erotica fans, let's be real, are under fire for being too horny for hockey players. By too horny, it means sexually harassing. So the obsession with the sex in these books on TikTok, the openness of the sexual language that is not just, oh, he's fine. It's taking it further and harassing real people and their spouses with your horniness is sexual harassment, especially when somebody's like, hey, that crosses a line, you need to stop. But these people feel an entitlement to sexually harassing real people. Much like God or Ariana Grande's relationships, online clout works in mysterious ways. Sometimes getting hyped by a major influencer and having a rush of new followers can be exactly the boost your brand needs. Other times, it's too much, particularly if you're happily married and said followers are women begging you to spit directly into their mouths. This is what professional hockey player Alex Wenberg and his wife Felicia found out this week after becoming the eye of horny cyclone on TikTok. Sexual harassers, let's be real. It all started with BookTok, the name for a hugely popular community on TikTok that's devoted to discussing books and constantly looking for the next most deprived thing that they can. On BookTok, hockey-themed romances are particularly popular, and Seattle Kraken center Alex Wenberg has become well known within the subculture for his chiseled Nordic good looks. For months, BookTokers have been posting thirsty fan edits about Wenberg and his other Kraken players. One of the most popular creators on BookTok is Kiara Lewis, who had about 1.1 million followers and has made a few videos proclaiming her affections for Wenberg. In general, Lewis's content is high energy and effusive, and is in a now deleted video about Wenberg, she is equally enthusiastic to say, at least, oh, Alex Wenberg, she says over a photo of the athlete on Google Images, baby, I might not got 5 holes, but I got 3. And since you're so good at assisting, why don't you assist your teammates in scoring all 3 of my holes? Hello. She then proceeds to declare that she wakes up every day praying to Jesus to turn into ice because what I wouldn't do to have that man glide on me, and urging him to crack her back. The video was horny and tongue-in-cheek in equal parts. pretty much part and parcel with Lewis's content, or for that matter, any number of other thirsty videos on TikTok. Lewis also hasn't singled Winberg out for her ardor, making similarly thirsty videos on his teammate Vince Dunn. At this point, I'm just thinking Seattle out there hiring models who don't know what to do with their sticks. Hello, she says in the video while watching a game, 'cause why he fine too, fuck. Lewis Kraken-themed videos gained a following, popularizing the catchphrase, crack my back. The Seattle Kraken also seemed to find her content amusing, following Lewis and commenting on her page. She also shouted up at a game, appearing on a Jumbotron while carrying the sign, BookTok sent me, crack my back, and was later gifted a jersey by the team. The official page of the Seattle Kraken also posted a slew of horny fan edits on its own, seemingly to capitalize off BookTok's popularity, including a video of Wenberg walking slow motion in a suit with the caption, when you accidentally become a BookTok account. I'm going to say corporations never know what they're getting into with social media. A lot of people also get on television shows or podcasts without knowing what they're doing, and just how people are. People can also start getting into something and then realize, oh, this is further than I want to go, and stop their consent at any point. So he could easily get into this and then say, hey, this is a lot for me, not what I was expecting, so I'm going to take a step back from this. And it does not mean that future harassment is okay. The fact that the erotica community that is so full on consent will be like, oh, but you were okay with it before and now you're not, you can take consent back, right? Or is that not a thing anymore? That goodwill soured, however, late last week when Wenberg's wife, Felicia Warren, called out Lewis and other BookTok creators for objectifying her husband. Quote, while I'm all for female empowerment and especially around sex, there have been videos and comments made that have crossed the line of what it means to fancy someone and when it actually sounds pretty predatory and exploitive. Warren wrote in her Instagram stories, what doesn't sit with me is when your desires come with sexual harassment, inappropriate comments, and the fact that with the internet we can normalize behavior that would never be okay if we flipped the genders around. She compared BookTok's treatment of Wenberg and other NHL players to sexist catcalling, including horny comments about her husband in Lewis's comments section to underscore her point. Wenberg himself also chimed in, posting on his Instagram stories on Sunday, quote, as someone who's been media trained my whole career, I've been taught to bite my tongue and to leave it instead of making a statement. But it has gone too far for me to stay quiet when people post vile comments on my wife's Instagram and a photo of our child. He concluded his post decrying sexual harassment on TikTok, writing, I'm all for BookTok community to write books and fiction about hockey, but the aggressive language about real-life players is too much. And in a seeming show of solidarity with Wenberg and his wife, the Kraken unfollowed Lewis according to a video she posted on Saturday, deleting its previous videos shouting out BookTok. The uproar over Lewis's content has been met with mixed reactions on social media. Many on BookTok sided with Wenberg and Warren, claiming Lewis's videos were essentially tantamount to sexual harassment. Did Kiera Lewis forget that it's okay to take back consent at any point? One fan wrote on Twitter. Also, just because other people laughed doesn't mean everyone was comfortable. Others, including Lewis, turned their ire to the Seattle Kraken, arguing that they had used her for their own convenience to profit off BookTok and gain more engagement, only to dump her by the wayside. Quote, I've noticed with musicians and sports teams, they like to use BookTok to get clout, and then they'll skirt to the side of them and move on to the next thing. Lewis said in a video she posted on Sunday, and I'm not fucking rocking with that. I'm pissed the fuck off. Yes, people use people, and they can use people, but you also don't get to abuse somebody, and then when they say, hey, that's enough, you go, well, you were fine with it before, why aren't you fine with it now? No. That's abuser attitude. That's an entitlement to sexually harassing another person. And would you really say that this is okay if a man was constantly sexually harassing a woman after she said lay it off? Oh, but they're wrong for saying you need to back off. For her part, Lewis stood steadfast in her claim that her videos about Wenberg were just intended as a joke, claiming that his wife had blown them out of proportion. TikTok, she said in one video, is the one place where we can just have fun and not really take life seriously. So to see my name being dragged with all of these false accusations is fucking blowing my mind. And then just say, hey, I'm sorry I took it too far. I'm sorry you got uncomfortable. I'm going to stop. It's fine to just admit, hey, I was being encouraged by the community. I thought that we were having fun, and I'm sorry that I took it a little too far and made people uncomfortable. That was not my intention. Like, if you think that it's just you having fun and it's not about your entitlement to somebody else's body, to somebody else's husband, then you can just say you done messed up. That's one of the problems with also current culture is you see so many people that say, I will never apologize. If you actually wrong somebody or you actually do something you didn't intend to do, it's okay to apologize. You're not a bad person. You can say, I was unaware and I learned, and then move forward. Not everything somebody does is done through maliciousness, and not every time you apologize, you hurt somebody because you were trying to be malicious. Or you're saying that you were a bad person for this thing. You can just have been unaware. It happens all the time. It happens to me all the time. The controversy over this particular segment on BookTok has prompted a parallel discussion about not just the sexualization of male athletes, but also the dynamics of brand relationships with various TikTok communities. With TikTok becoming a favorite social media manager and accounts for Duolingo and Ryanair becoming TikTok celebrities in themselves, brands have a lot to gain from engaging with communities like BookTok, the hashtag for which has more than 162 billion views. There's also this thing where it's the brand relationship where you're basically being held captive by the responses or by the community, where we are going to say what we want to say or do what we want to do, and if you make a peep about it, then we are going to drag you on this platform. It is a light switch. So yes, you can feed into the community and get all of this bolstering power, but if at some point you put your foot down for any reason, they will come at you. And I've seen it on an interpersonal scale, and I've seen it on a bigger scale. It's a huge thing also with politics, whether you're on the left or the right, is you feed into the politics that they want you to say, and they will build up your community, and they will come to you because you're saying what they want to hear. But if you say the wrong thing, you will be excommunicated, you will be dragged, you are a liar. But they will cover every bad thing that you do as long as you allow the abuse to happen. And that's not true support. That's not true of somebody liking you for who you are or what you're doing. With Lewis having more than twice the following accounts of the teams like Kraken, brands have a lot to gain from courting the support of influencers like her in communities like BookTok. And in the videos about the controversy, Lewis takes issue with the Kraken seemingly only building a relationship with her when it benefited them, only to revoke it when she started getting backlash. Well, if she apologized and said, "Hey, I didn't mean to cross this line. I'm sorry," then there you go. She could have done a video saying, hey, I was just having fun. I didn't mean to offend. I didn't mean to make Mr. Winneberg and his wife uncomfortable. I'm sorry for taking it to that level. And I'm sure it would have been fine. But when you are just stuck and obsessive and can never be wrong, then it severs that relationship. I've seen this also with book reviewers, and people think that if you are the celebrity, not even just a celebrity, but that somehow the commenter has less power always than whatever the subject of their comments are. And I've seen it with book reviews, where a book reviewer will have a massive platform, and especially compared to an author or an indie author, and they will target that indie author to destroy that indie author. And if the indie author says anything, then they're going to get it more. And they are constantly the one in power, not the reviewer with a multitude bigger base. I'm thinking of the Three River book that I mentioned a couple weeks ago, where a bigger YouTuber covered them and they were just attacked, and Twitter just attacked. And there are many books like that, many indie authors like that, where they've got this minute following, maybe no following whatsoever. And then this book person, this book reviewer will just go in on them and attack them personally. And if you say anything, you're the bad guy. That is a power dynamic, but it's never appreciated for what it is, because the abuser is always saying that they are the victims and they have less power when they clearly don't have less power. It's okay to just take it back. It's okay to apologize. And we need to normalize actually apologizing for things that matter, because I've also seen so many people apologizing for things that are stupid, that don't matter, that are not actually a problem. But culture doesn't let you apologize for when somebody says, hey, that's actually too far for me. The reason why BookTok was even aware of Kraken, or hell, half of the hockey teams, is when they started doing these the slow-mos, and hey, BookTok, look at us, she said in a video. So is that a tantamount to victim blaming? Does Lewis's content go too far? Should brands engage with excessively libidinous fans, and is it tantamount to sexual harassment to fantasize about being a piece of ice so a Swedish hockey player will glide on you? All legitimate questions, but perhaps none more so than the eternal one of whether terminally horny people should be allowed to have internet access. Probably not, let's be real. Which goes back into the YA issue, and I'm only going to mention this briefly because it kind of ties stuff in with the excess, with the building into a porn addiction, and that is people like this, where they have built their reputation on writing horny books. Let's see. Let's go ahead and click one of these so you can see. Erotica, erotic romance. So you can see all of her erotic backlog. I think it even describes hot contemporary romance and sexy action-packed YA fantasy. If you're calling a YA fantasy sexy, you're not writing for teens, you're writing for adults. And this is where I also think it's dubious, is you've got, normally previously, if you had kids books and you had adult books, like sex books, you would have different pen names to separate them. But now you've got the horny and the same backlog as what is called YA. But this is also described as a sexy YA, which means it's not actually focused for teens, it's focused for women 20 plus who are horny and want more of their sex action, which goes back into this, where people don't understand the boundaries. Have your smut, but understand where smut ends and where it needs to be kept away from other things, which is not being thrust into books for teenagers. It does not need to be in every book, and you need to not be selling children sex. But people are obsessed, don't understand age groups, don't understand boundaries, and are trying to show sexual positions to 5-year-olds now. Are trying to show 14-year-olds how to use Grindr when they can't even legally sign up for Grindr. You know the age group where kids get trafficked the most? 11 to 14. So this is what we're looking at here. And this is not the only person that I've seen that has erotica and YA in the same backlog, looking the same as everything else. I think it's a problem. And I don't think it's a problem that's being talked about enough, because I think there are so many sex addicts and they will come at you because the community is so passionate. And it's a big subject. So here I am presenting it to you. What are your thoughts on clean fiction versus smut? What are your thoughts on this movement for just creating a community for clean books? What are your thoughts on this sexual harassment of this hockey player, or that BookTok does onto real people, or not just BookTok, but readers, erotica readers fantasizing? What are your thoughts on Brandon Sanderson not having sex in his books? And finally, what are your thoughts on authors who write teen fiction, and adult fiction, but put them in the same backlog? Would you even trust that this is YA when it says YA? Like, this is why nobody knows what YA is anymore, because it's barely legal. That's what it's barely legal porn now. I'm sorry, YA's teen fictions of the past. YA is, at this point in time, a collection of tropes that mostly have to do with power dynamics, sex, relationships, and innocence. That's pretty much it. At least that's my opinion. Let me know yours down in the comments below. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?